The unforgettable disappearance of Celia Harper, Bozeman, Montana, 1998. On a brisk September evening in 1998, 22-year-old Celia Harper disappeared from the outskirts of Bozeman, Montana. The last known sighting placed her on a quiet rural road just beyond the town's limits, alone, under a fading amber sky. No witnesses, no signs of struggle, no explanation. Before we begin, I want to let you know that due to the limited visual materials and the age of this case, there isn't much existing footage or imagery to support the story you're about to hear. As a result, this episode will feature a single image background throughout. Think of this as more an immersive audio experience, a storytelling session that lets your imagination fill in the gaps. Now's the perfect time to grab your headphones, maybe even some popcorn, and settle in. Celia Harper was not the type to vanish without reason. Born and raised in Bozeman, she was known among friends and family as a grounded, quietly determined young woman. Her deep brown eyes reflected a curious mind, and she carried herself with a cautious grace that few overlooked. In the months leading up to her disappearance, she had been navigating the delicate transition from college life to uncertain adulthood, working part-time at the local library and studying environmental science at Montana State University. The small college town of Bozeman in 1998 was a place of close-knit communities, vast open fields, and rolling pine-covered hills that stretched far into the horizon. The air often carried the scent of damp earth and cedarwood smoke, especially as autumn crept in with cooler nights. Roads leading out of town quickly narrowed into gravel tracks, winding through farmland and stretches of dense forest, places where a single traveler could become invisible. On the evening of September 14th, Celia had told a few friends she was going for a short drive to clear her head, a habit she often indulged in when feeling restless. Witnesses confirmed she left her apartment near downtown around 7:30 p.m., driving her dark green 1995 Subaru Legacy. Her destination was vague. She mentioned possibly visiting the outskirts near Highlight Canyon, but gave no specifics. Her last confirmed location was the intersection of Old Gallatin Road and McClellan Creek Road, a quiet stretch about 5 miles from town where traffic thinned and streetlights gave way to the shadows of towering lodgepole pines. According to a passing motorist, she was seen parked briefly at the roadside pullout, her car's headlights cutting through the dusk. After that, Celia simply vanished. Law enforcement opened case file BP 1998-0437, classifying disappearance as suspicious due to the abruptness and a lack of explanation. Over the following days, search parties combed the dense forest and creek beds near her last sighting. Volunteer hikers, local law enforcement, and search dogs were deployed, but the terrain, characterized by steep slopes, thick undergrowth, and tangled brambles, offered few clues. No personal belongings were found at the roadside or in the nearby wilderness. No wallet, no purse, no cell phone. Her car was eventually discovered 3 days later, parked neatly in her apartment complex's lot, locked and undisturbed. Inside the car, her keys were missing and an untouched cup of coffee sat in a holder, cold and forgotten. Friends described Celia as a cautious driver who preferred planned routes and rarely ventured alone into the forest after dark. There had been no signs of distress in her recent behavior. On the contrary, those closest to her said she was making plans for the future, applying for internships related to wildlife conservation, quietly hopeful but reserved. Her disappearance struck a nerve in Bozeman. The community rallied, organizing vigils and distributing flyers, but with no leads or witnesses beyond that single roadside sighting, the mystery deepened. Questions lingered in the cool Montana air. What had prompted Celia to leave so suddenly? Was she meeting someone? Had she been followed? Investigators found no evidence of foul play at the scene. No tire tracks indicating a chase. No witnesses to any altercation. And yet, the very landscape surrounding her last known location seemed to swallow the truth whole. Nearly a quarter of a century later, the case remains open and unsolved. Celia Harper's disappearance is a quiet shadow haunting the forest outside Bozeman, an unsettling reminder how a single evening can rewrite a life, leaving behind only questions. What happened to Celia Harper that September night? The answers, if they exist, remain hidden somewhere beneath the dense pines and fading twilight. The morning of September 14th, 1998, dawned clear and crisp over Bozeman, Montana. For many, it was an ordinary Monday, but for Celia Harper and those around her, it would become a day etched in uncertainty and fear. Morning, 7:30 a.m. to noon. At 7:30 a.m., Celia was seen leaving her apartment on West Main Street by her roommate, Jamie Collins. Jamie remembered their brief conversation over coffee. She seemed fine, just a bit quiet. She mentioned she had a lot of reading to do and maybe a late class. Jamie recounted later in the police statement, Bozeman PD, statement hashtag 021-98. Celia's demeanor was described as calm and focused, typical of someone balancing study and work. She planned to spend the day on campus and had an appointment with her academic advisor at Montana State University scheduled for 2 p.m. Between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., security footage from the library confirmed Celia was on site, checking out several books on environmental science and conservation. The librarian, Ruth Evans, recalled seeing her. She seemed a little distracted, but nothing unusual. She chatted with a friend briefly, but mostly she was on her own. No concerns were raised during this period. Early afternoon, noon to 3 p.m. At approximately 12:45 p.m., Celia was spotted by fellow student Mark Benson outside the campus cafeteria. She looked a bit tired, but she smiled when I waved. Said she was going to take a drive to clear her head. Mark later told investigators, Bozeman PD, witness statement hashtag 045-98. This casual remark would prove critical in piecing together Celia's final movements. Around 1:30 p.m., campus security cameras recorded Celia leaving campus and getting into her Subaru Legacy. According to her vehicle's parking permit records, this was her last presence at the university. Late afternoon, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. The afternoon hours are where the timeline grows sparse and mysterious. There are no direct sightings or recordings of Celia's whereabouts during this period. Investigators have dubbed this the lost window. At 4:15 p.m., a local truck driver named Earl Jenkins passed Celia's vehicle parked at a pullout on Old Gallatin Road near the intersection with McClellan Creek Road. Jenkins recalls, "It was parked by the side of the road, headlights off, no one in sight. I didn't stop. Thought maybe she was on a walk or taking pictures or something." This unremarkable observation is the last confirmed visual of Celia before she vanished. A critical piece of physical evidence was uncovered near this area several days later. A small leather-bound notebook with Celia's initials found partially buried under a brush pile near the creek's edge. The notebook contained handwritten notes. Some related to her studies, others cryptic musings about finding balance and the forest secrets. Forensic analysis, case file BP 1998-0437, confirmed Celia's fingerprint on the cover, but no other fingerprints or DNA traces. Evening, 7:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. At 7:30 p.m., Celia was reported missing by Jamie Collins when she failed to return home after her planned short drive. By 8 p.m., the Bozeman Police Department, BPD, had initiated a missing person report. Detective Linda Moreno was assigned to the case. In her initial briefing, she described the scene. The car was found abandoned at the apartment complex, locked with the keys missing. An untouched cup of coffee was in the holder. She hadn't planned on returning immediately. No personal items were found inside the vehicle, except for a pair of reading glasses. The absence of her keys was perplexing, raising questions about whether Celia had left the car voluntarily or been forced out. Between 8:30 p.m. and 9:30 p.m., search teams, comprised of BPD officers, volunteer hikers, and the local search and rescue unit, began canvassing the nearby forests and roads. K-9 units were deployed but failed to pick up a definitive scent trail beyond the immediate roadside. Unusual behavior and witness reports. Several locals later came forward describing an unconfirmed sighting of a young woman matching Celia's description near a convenience store on South Wilson Avenue at approximately 6:45 p.m. The witness, cashier Helen Matthews, recalled. She looked unsettled, like she'd been crying or was upset, but she quickly left without buying anything. Detectives later discounted this sighting as inconsistent with confirmed timelines and terrain distances. It was one of the first red herrings in the case. Another suspicious lead came from an anonymous tip received on September 20th, claiming that a man had been seen following a woman fitting Celia's description near the Hyalite Canyon entrance in the late afternoon. The description was vague and no suspect was ever identified, but the tip prompted a thorough search of the area. Physical evidence, or lack thereof. Vehicle. Celia's Subaru was found intact at the apartment complex on September 17th, 3 days after her disappearance. The car was undisturbed, locked, with no signs of forced entry. Notebook. The leather-bound notebook found near McClellan Creek Road offered no immediate clues, but was preserved for handwriting and DNA analysis. No cell phone. Celia did not own a cell phone, a detail investigators noted as a complicating factor. No footprints or tire tracks. The roadside and surrounding terrain yielded no footprints or tire marks indicative of a struggle or vehicle other than Celia's. No witnesses. Except for the single driver's sighting and the disputed convenience store report, no other witnesses came forward. The response: family, authorities, and community. The Harper family was devastated. Celia's mother, Evelyn Harper, described the initial days. It was like she'd been erased. One moment she was here, our daughter, our hope, and then nothing. I kept hoping the phone would ring, that she'd walk through the door. Bozeman Police Chief Robert Langdon held a press conference on September 18th, urging the community for information. We are actively investigating this disappearance and asking anyone with information come forward. Celia's safety and well-being are our highest priorities. The Bozeman Chronicle, a local newspaper, ran front-page stories throughout September and October, fueling intense public interest. Letters and tips poured into the police department, many of which were unrelated or unverifiable. Community vigils were held weekly at the town square, and friends created flyers that plastered telephone poles and storefronts, hoping to keep Celia's face in public memory. Media coverage and theories. The media, while respectful, speculated quietly on several fronts. Accident, voluntary disappearance, or foul play. Theories abounded but lacked solid grounding. One local rumor suggested Celia was involved with someone dangerous, a theory stemming from a cryptic message she wrote in her notebook about escaping shadows. Investigators found no evidence of threats or known enemies. Another theory posited that Celia might have fallen victim to a transient criminal or stranger in the isolated outskirts. Bozeman had a history of occasional burglaries and transient activity, but no recorded violent crimes linked to her disappearance. Red herrings and dead ends. Two prominent false leads complicated the investigation. The stranger on Gallatin sighting. On September 19th, a witness reported seeing a man loitering near Celia's car around the time of her disappearance. The description was vague, and the individual was never located. Surveillance checks and neighborhood canvases yielded no matches. The misplaced phone. On September 21st, a cell phone was found near Hyalite Canyon bearing Celia's name engraved on the case. Initial excitement turned to confusion when it was traced back to a local antique dealer who claimed to have sold the phone years earlier. The phone was not hers. Official statements and case status. As the investigation progressed into late 1998, Detective Moreno summarized the challenge. We have no body, no clear suspect, no concrete motive. This case is frustrating and heartbreaking. We rely heavily on community cooperation and any new leads. The Bozeman Police Department kept the case open and active, categorizing it under Montana Missing Persons Registry as BP 1998-0437 Active Investigation. The cliffhanger. Nearly 3 weeks after Celia's disappearance, on October 3rd, an anonymous phone call to Bozeman PD hinted at a discovery. The caller claimed, "There's something you're missing on McClellan Creek Road. Look where the water meets the fallen pine." Detective Moreno and her team returned to the area under the cover of early morning fog, hopeful yet wary. What they found that day would shift the investigation in a new and unexpected direction and reveal a hidden layer beneath the calm Montana wilderness. Nearly 2 months after 22-year-old Celia Harper vanished without a trace on that September evening, the case continues to haunt Bozeman, Montana. Despite exhaustive searches, countless leads, and community vigilance, no definitive answers have emerged. However, new findings and expert insights have given rise to several theories, each plausible, each unsettling in its way. Today, we examine what has been uncovered, consider these possible explanations, and confront the sobering reality that some mysteries resist resolution. New developments. The McClellan Creek discovery. Following an anonymous tip received on October 3, 1998, Bozeman Police Detective Linda Moreno and her team revisited McClellan Creek Road, near the exact location where Celia was last seen. The tip suggested investigators, "Look where the water meets a fallen pine," a cryptic phrase that led the search party to a secluded area along the creek bank. Here, they discovered a partially submerged backpack with a distinctive patch matching Celia's favorite hiking pack, described by friends and family during the initial investigation. Inside the backpack were a folded jacket bearing Celia's initials, a small, empty water bottle, an unopened energy bar, a crudely sketched map of the local hiking trails. Forensic teams meticulously combed the area, but found no additional items or physical evidence. Notably, no footprints leading away from the creek were identified, and the backpack appeared undisturbed by wildlife, indicating it had been there for a relatively short time. This discovery reopened questions about Celia's intentions and movements in her final hours. Was she attempting a hike or escape into the wilderness? Or was the backpack deliberately placed to mislead? Timeline reconstruction. The day revisited. Re-examining the timeline with this new evidence adds complexity. 4:15 p.m. Last confirmed sighting of Celia's car on Old Gallatin Road. 6:45 p.m. Unconfirmed sighting of a distressed woman at a convenience store downtown, later discounted. 7:30 p.m. Car found locked, keys missing at her apartment complex. October 3rd. Backpack found near McClellan Creek. The spatial disconnect between the car's location and the backpack's discovery site, roughly a 2-mile radius, raises questions about her mode of travel after leaving the vehicle. How did she get from the car to the creek? Was she accompanied? Or did she move on foot? Theories explored. 1. Abduction and foul play. One of the most immediate concerns following Celia's disappearance was the possibility of abduction. While no signs of forced entry or physical struggle were found in her vehicle or at her residence, the missing car keys and abandoned belongings suggest she may have been coerced or forced away unexpectedly. The anonymous tip and backpack discovery could indicate that her abductor disposed of some of her belongings to mislead investigators, or that she tried to escape, dropping her gear in the process. Bozeman Police's efforts to trace persons of interest, interview local transit populations, and canvass nearby residences yielded no suspects. The lack of physical evidence leaves the abduction theory plausible but unproven. 2. Voluntary disappearance. Some have speculated Celia may have chosen to disappear intentionally, perhaps overwhelmed by personal pressures, the uncertain transition from student to adult, or hidden struggles unknown to her friends and family. Her notebook entries, philosophical, cryptic notes on balance and secrets, have been interpreted by some as hints of a planned retreat from her life. Yet, those who knew her closely refuted this theory, emphasizing her close relationships, her clear plans for the future, and her careful nature. Still, the fact that her car was found locked and her keys missing could imply she planned to travel on foot or by other means, complicating this hypothesis. 3. Accidental death or natural causes. Given the rugged terrain around Bozeman and the unpredictable Montana wilderness, one theory posits that Celia may have become disoriented or injured while exploring the forest. The empty water bottle and abandoned backpack near McClellan Creek suggests she was moving through the area on foot. A fall, sudden illness, or hypothermia in the growing autumn chill could have incapacitated her. Search teams found no trace of a body, but the vast forests and creek beds make locating remains difficult, especially if environmental factors obscured evidence. 4. The supernatural or unexplained. While not embraced by official channels, some local folklore and community whispers have introduced a more enigmatic theory, that Celia fell victim to forces beyond explanation. Stories of strange lights, unexplained sounds, and mysterious disappearances have circulated in the area for decades. Whether folklore or coincidence, these tales add an eerie dimension to the mystery. Detective Moreno stated in an interview with the Bozeman Chronicle, we focus on facts and evidence. Evidence. The unknown can be unsettling, but it's important to ground our work in reality. Police investigation, procedures, and challenges. The Bozeman Police Department maintained a thorough investigative approach, applying standard missing person protocols, canvassing all known associates and last contacts, reviewing traffic and security camera footage, forensic analysis of recovered items and crime scenes, utilizing cadaver dogs and aerial searches of the terrain, receiving and vetting hundreds of tips and leads. Despite these efforts, the investigation suffered from inherent limitations, lack of surveillance technology in rural areas. Celia's absence of a cell phone limited tracking possibilities. The wide, dense forest complicated search efforts. Witness reports varied widely in reliability. Detective Moreno reflected, "Cases like this test our resolve. Every lead must be pursued, but we must also be cautious not to misinterpret inconclusive evidence." Family and community impact. For the Harper family, the ongoing uncertainty is the heaviest burden to bear. Evelyn Harper told a local news crew, "Not knowing what happened, it's like living in a constant state of suspended grief. Every knock at the door makes you hope, then dread." Friends created an online memorial and yearly gatherings to keep Celia's memory alive, encouraging renewed searches and community awareness. Media and public response. The media coverage was balanced but persistent, emphasizing respect for the family and facts. A local documentary, titled Vanished, the Celia Harper story, aired in 1999, featuring interviews with investigators, friends, and experts on missing persons cases. Viewership sparked renewed interest and brought forward additional leads, none of which altered the course of the investigation. Red herrings and misleading leads. Several false trails have diverted attention, including the distressed woman sighting downtown was later proven to be another individual. The antique cell phone engraved with Celia's name turned out to be unrelated. Anonymous tips with conflicting information, some of which are intentionally misleading. These red herrings underscore the challenge of maintaining clarity in such cases, an emotional strain on all parties involved. The lingering mystery. After all these years, the question remains, where is Celia Harper? Was she the victim of a stranger's violence? Did she choose to disappear, seeking a new life? Or was she the tragic casualty of nature's unforgiving wilds? Or, perhaps, is the answer hidden somewhere in between, within the shadows of the Montana forest and the silence left behind by a young woman who vanished too soon? What do you think happened to Celia Harper? Was it a tragic accident or something far more sinister? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to the channel for more content relating to horrors and missing cases.